When I looked at all of the video that I saw Hamas pushing out, there was a disproportionate number of videos with them violating Israeli women. A disproportionate number. It was like the message they wanted to send was, you can't protect your women. Like, we want to insult you at every possible level. Is that just psychological warfare on their part, trying to send the message that it is the worst possible message? It was disproportionate how much they showed of that over and over again, which is the ultimate in cowardice in what they're showing, but it seems like it was intentional.
Well, it was, but it was coupled even, as I said, with the beheading of the women they raped, which is, you think about that. What is this monstrosity? And they're proud of it. I think that the interesting question I'd ask Dr. Phil is, where are all the women's organizations? Where are they? Why don't they speak up? How could they face this brutality and just be quiet and maybe issue a perfunctory statement when they're forced to? But this is, the whole attitude to Israel here is absurd, because yes, we've killed about 14,000 terrorists. Unfortunately, because of the fact that they use the human shield, there are a slightly bigger number, about 16,000 civilians that were killed in the places where the terrorists won't let them leave. Hamas stops them at gunpoint, because for us, every civilian is a tragedy. Every civilian death is a tragedy. For them, every civilian death is a strategy. So when you look at the numbers around us, in Syria, in Yemen, in Iraq, millions of people were killed, Muslims. Millions were uprooted from their homes. Where were the protests? Where are the demonstrations on US campuses? Where is it? And the answer is, it's nowhere, because it's not directed at what we do. It's directed at who we are. It's an anti-Semitic explosion that threatens all of civilization.
And why is that, in your opinion? It's anti-Semitic activity has gone up 360% in America since October 7th, and it was already high before October 7th, and it's gone up 360%. Why?
Well, because I think it's a fusion of radical Islam and the ultra-anarchist left. It's fusing together. The only thing they agree on is that Israel has to be destroyed and America has to be destroyed. And that I think is something that, you're right, is rejected by the mainstream Americans. By the way, the polls bear you out. I mean, I see this tracking poll by the Harvard-Harris tracking group, polling group, and they show this. And they show 80% of Americans, when you ask them, do you favor in this conflict Israel or Hamas, 80% say Israel, 20% say Hamas. It hasn't budged by a percent. It's just steady. And of course, you wouldn't know that because 90% of the coverage in the media is negative. I think by and large, the American people understand, actually they understand what the terrorists say, or what these Hamas and Iran say about us. They say, Israel is a small America. We are you and you are us. Now that's why they hate us both. And in many ways, I think the majority of Americans across most of the political divide understand this. And I'm grateful for that support, obviously.
Let's talk about the hostages. You've said on many occasions, and when you've talked about the Palestinian deaths of civilians, I read people. My job is to read people. I've looked at the empathy in your face and heard the empathy in your words. And I've never seen anyone warn, we're getting ready to attack here. Millions of leaflets, text messages, phone calls, announcements. I've never seen anybody go to that length to protect a civilian population. It's unprecedented in the history of war, but you have gone to that lengths to protect. And people seem to not pay much attention to that. But you have said that your goals are get the hostages back, eliminate Hamas, and protect against this happening again, Hamas rising their head up again in the future. Have those goals changed at all since the beginning?
No. We've destroyed about 20 battalions of the Hamas's 24 terrorist battalions. We have another 4 to go. They're in Rafah, and that's why we want to go into Rafah, because we can't leave them there. Basically, what they're trying to do is extort, blackmail us to leave Gaza, leave them in place, these battalions, and leave their leadership in place, and then they go in and take over Gaza again and do it again. They'll rape, they'll kidnap hostages, and they'll murder again and again and again. So we don't want that. That's why we have to achieve victory. And that means that we have to destroy all these battalions, which we will. We face very strong opposition to that, but we're going to overcome it. The second thing is releasing the hostages. We released up to now about more than half, and I'm committed to getting every last one. I just met the wife and daughter of one of the hostages, and your heart goes out to them, because you know the suffering that the hostages undergo and the suffering that the families are undergoing, not knowing what will happen to their loved ones. And so we'll do everything we can to get them back. I'm committed to that.
Well, I've met with some of the hostage families today, and of course that's their number one priority, is getting them back. Some of them were held for a while, released, and they have family members still being held, and they want to know if they're going to get them back. I mean, they're dying every day because they were there for a while and know what the treatment is, and they're so focused on getting them back. Are the heads, the strength of Hamas focused in Rafah now?
Yes.
These aren't just any battalions, or these
are the remaining battalions. But it's just imagine what would happen if the Allies went into Germany after the horrors that the Nazi regime did after its attack on Britain and all the other things that we saw, the conquest of Europe. So now they start rolling them back. They go into Germany, but they don't complete the job. They leave a quarter or 20% of the German army intact, of the Nazi army. They don't go into Berlin. They don't finish the job. You know, history would be different. Nobody believes that that could be done. But when people are telling us, don't go into Rafah, that's what they're telling us. Leave them intact. And then the thing repeats itself again and again. So I think right-minded people, rational-minded people understand that we don't have a choice. But there's strong opposition. I've said in the Holocaust memorial service that we had the other day, I said in the Holocaust we stood alone, but we were defenseless. And today, if Israel has to stand alone, we'll stand alone. But we also know we're not alone, because we have so many decent people everywhere who do support us, who do understand the truth. And we will defeat our enemies, and we will secure our future.
There was a headline in an American newspaper today that said "betrayed," and it had a picture of President Biden and a picture of you. And it talked about President Biden saying he was not going to release armament that was committed, 1,800, 2,000-pound bombs, 1,700, 500-pound bombs, if in fact you went into Rafah. And so the headline was "betrayed." And then in an interview on CNN, he said, I'm not going to do that because they're using these bombs to, quote, go after population centers. It's just wrong. And I don't know if that's what he meant to say or not say, but you're not using bombs to go after population centers. You're using bombs to go after Hamas.
That's right. Who's hiding.
Sometimes they're hiding in population centers.
But we are doing everything we can to let the people leave, and with amazing efforts. But I think also that this is precision weapons. So in fact, if you want to avoid civilian casualties, you need these weapons rather than imprecise weaponry. But I think beyond that, look, I've known Joe Biden for many years, so 40 years and more. We often had our agreements, but we've had our disagreements. We've been able to overcome them. I hope we can overcome them now, but we will do what we have to do to protect our country, and that means protect our future. And that means we will defeat Hamas, including in Rafah. We have no other choice.
Well, these leaders that you're talking to that behind the scenes agree, but do they agree that Hamas has to be stopped now and completely 100% eradicated?
Some of them do, yes.
Some don't?
Well, some of them openly say that when they talk to, they don't openly say that in the public sphere, but they openly say it to us. They say, if you don't destroy Hamas, that means that the Iranian axis will have a victory and we're next. And in many ways, all our free societies are next. Because if Israel is pushed not to destroy Hamas because of this tactic of using human shields or other considerations, then every democracy will be imperiled. So, I've said we'll fight if necessary. I've said we'll fight with our fingernails. I assure you, Dr. Phil, we have more than fingernails.
Well,
and we will be victorious.